They say truth sets you free. But I've learned it breaks you first. And that night, as I walked into Delino's, still wearing my nurse's uniform, sweat clinging to my back from a double shift, I didn't know my entire life was about to be ripped apart by glitter, wine, and a single word. Congratulations to our real daughter. That's what the banner said. Big, gold letters stretched across the back wall like a trophy over someone else's finish line. At first I thought maybe I was reading it wrong. My brain, still fogged from adrenaline and caffeine, tried to process it like a bad joke. But the punchline came fast. Everyone was smiling, laughing, celebrating. Except me. No one had saved me a seat. No one even paused when I walked in. Not my mother Marlene, sipping her wine like this was the red carpet. Not my father Gerald, nodding along as my younger sister Tessa glowed under the spotlight. Even Grandpa Walter was there, quiet as ever. His eyes met mine, just for a second. But he didn't say a word. I stood at the edge of the room like a glitch in their perfect celebration. The waiter had to drag a chair from the hallway just for me. They didn't even flinch. And then the toast. To Tessa, my mother said, raising her glass with theatrical pride. Our real daughter. We finally have something to celebrate. There was no pause. No hesitation. Everyone clinked their glasses like it was a birthright. And that word real sank into my chest like a needle full of acid. Tessa beamed, leaned forward, and said it like she was delivering a TED Talk. I took one of those DNA tests. You know, for fun. Turns out, I'm not adopted. I'm actually Mom and Dad's biological daughter. Fully. No donor. No mix-up. I'm theirs. The room cheered. Gerald even wiped away a tear. I whispered, wait, what does that mean about me? And the silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Then came Marlene's shrug. Well, honey, you were part of the same process. It was complicated. We were young. Mistakes happen. They laughed again. Louder this time. As if the pain ricocheting through my bones was some sort of inside joke. Tessa leaned toward me, eyes sparkling with cruelty. Honestly, this kinda explains a lot. You've always been different. Different. Like an afterthought. Like the spare parts left over after they got the daughter they actually wanted. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't blink. Even when the waiter slid an envelope in front of me, sealed, with my name, Alina, written in ink like a ghost from the past, I just sat there, frozen in my own skin. They kept laughing. They kept eating. I was invisible. The envelope. It burned in my hand like a match about to be struck. I didn't open it. Not in front of them. I walked out of that restaurant and into the freezing night, heels echoing against the pavement like gunshots in my chest. Behind me, the laughter carried on. Inside jokes and champagne bubbles like my identity had never mattered. Like I wasn't the one who cleaned up their messes for the past 30 years. Like I hadn't made my own birthday cake 3 years in a row because Marlene forgot. I stood under a flickering street lamp, staring down at the envelope with my name. My real name. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't part of their plan. They hadn't given this to me. Someone else had. Someone who wanted me to know the truth. The real truth. I opened it. And everything broke. It was a letter. Old paper. Familiar handwriting I hadn't seen since childhood. My grandfather. Alina. If you're reading this, it means they finally told you. Or maybe they told you just enough to hurt you, not enough to explain. You were never supposed to end up with them. Your mother, your real mother, was Alina Cardinus. She was my daughter's best friend. She was strong. Brave. She loved you more than life. But she died. And they buried the truth with her. I dropped onto a bench, legs numb, fingers trembling. Camila. A name I'd never heard. A mother I'd never known. Not Marlene. Not the woman who saw me as a stain on her past. But someone else. Someone who chose me. Marlene took you in out of pride, not love. She didn't want to raise her friend's child, she wanted to erase her. I tried, Alina. I tried to stay close. But they shut me out. I kept everything Camila left behind. Photos. Journals. Her letters to you. Come find me. I'll tell you everything. Grandpa Walter. The letter slipped from my hands. For a moment I just stared at the ink, the words, the weight of it all pressing down on my chest. I wasn't just the other daughter. I was someone else's miracle. Someone's secret. Someone they'd hidden on purpose. And in that moment, standing outside a restaurant where love was a performance, I made a vow. I wouldn't beg for their acceptance anymore. I wouldn't crawl for their scraps. I would find the truth. I would reclaim everything they stole from me. And I would make them pay. I didn't drive home that night. I couldn't. Home wasn't a place anymore. It wasn't the tan house with the creaky stairs or the living room where Tessa's trophies sat untouched, polished like holy relics. That place had never been mine. Not really. Instead, I drove to the only person who had ever truly seen me. Grandpa Walter. 15 minutes. That's how long it took from the restaurant to his porch. But it felt like I aged decades at every red light. My fingers clutched the steering wheel so tight they ached. My heart was thudding in my throat like it was trying to scream before I even got there. When I pulled into his driveway, the porch light was already on. And there he was, sitting on the porch swing just like he used to when I was a kid. His silhouette barely moved, but something in me did. Something old and small, something I'd kept buried. He stood up as I stepped out of the car. Slowly, deliberately, like he knew this moment had been waiting for years. Then he opened his arms. And I collapsed into them. Not crying. Not talking. Just breathing like I hadn't in years. The house smelled like cedar and thyme. Everything was exactly the same. The same worn carpet, the same leaning lamp, the same grandfather clock that never quite ticked right. But now it felt different. Like walking into a memory that had finally explained itself. On the coffee table sat a small wooden box. Walter opened it carefully, like it might fall apart if handled too fast. Inside were stacks of letters, all addressed to me. Some opened, some never sent. The handwriting was soft, looped, full of feeling. My mother wrote these? I asked, my voice barely mine. He nodded. Camila never stopped writing to you. Even after the accident. Even after Marlene shut the door on everything that mattered. I picked up the first letter. Lena Bug. If you're ever scared, know that I would have held your hand through every storm. If you're ever lonely, I hope the stars remind you how loved you are. I wish I had more time. I wish I could hear your laugh. But even if I'm not there, I am. I always am. I couldn't hold back the tears this time. They fell in silence. Not loud. Not broken. Just full. Grief for a woman I never knew. Gratitude for a love I've been denied my whole life. Walter watched me quietly. There's more, he said. He reached into the box and pulled out a photograph. A hospital room. A young woman, eyes like mine, smile like summer. She was cradling a baby me. She fought for you, he whispered. Camila wanted you more than anything. But when she died, Marlene stepped in. She told everyone it was temporary. That she'd only keep you until other arrangements were made. But those arrangements never came. I stared at the photo until my hands went numb. Everything made sense now. The way Marlene always kept me at arm's length. The way Gerald avoided eye contact when I asked too many questions. The birthday cards that stopped suddenly. The way Tessa always got more praise, more affection, more room to be real. They hadn't seen me as their daughter. I was a project. A burden. A secret to bury. And they buried me deep. That night, I slept in Grandpa Walter's guest room. The walls were covered in pictures of Camila. Laughing with students, singing into a microphone, holding a violin like it was part of her body. She had been a music teacher. A kind one from the letters. Fierce and funny. Brave. There was a softness in the way she wrote about me. Like I was never a mistake. Like I was wanted. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was breathing real air. The next morning I didn't cry. I made coffee. I sat in silence. And I stared at the sun as it rose through the curtains like something holy. I was done being the spare. Done being the complicated mix-up. And if they thought they could keep burying Camila's memory, if they thought I would just disappear now that the truth was out, they had no idea who I was becoming. 3 days later, I submitted the paperwork to legally change my name. Alina Cardinus. Camila's name. My name. I didn't tell Marlene. I didn't text Tessa. Gerald wouldn't have noticed if I changed my name to irrelevant. The only person who mattered had written it in every letter. And now it was mine. But that's not when the revenge started. No, the revenge started a week later. When I received a call from a lawyer named Ria Dorman. She was going through old estate documents, she said. Cleaning up files from a closed fertility clinic. Said she had reason to believe I'd been part of a misfiled case. Her tone was clipped. Professional. But something about the way she paused when she said my name made my skin crawl. I think we should meet in person, she said. You may want to see the files yourself. I almost said no. I almost chose peace. But then I remembered the banner. I remembered Marlene's voice, cold and dismissive. It doesn't really change anything. You're still family. I wasn't family. I was the lie they raised. And maybe, just maybe, they weren't the only ones who needed to be exposed. When I walked into that downtown office 2 days later, I wasn't Alina the nurse. I wasn't the girl who made her own birthday cake. I was the daughter of Camila Cardinus. I was a wildfire with a heartbeat. And I was ready to learn everything. The law office didn't look like a place where lives got ruined. It was too quiet. Too beige. A wall of smiling stock photo people lined the hallway, families, new parents, happy endings. I remember thinking, I don't belong here. But I did. Because I was the product of someone else's decision, someone who hadn't seen me as a person, just paperwork. A file. A disposable embryo. The receptionist took my name without blinking. Alina Cardinus, I said aloud, steady and sharp. It still felt new, but it felt right. Miss Dorman will be with you shortly, she replied. While I waited, I stared at a painting on the wall, two trees tangled together at the roots, but growing in opposite directions. That's what I was. Tied to people I never chose, growing away from them in silence. Rhea Dorman looked exactly how I pictured a lawyer who doesn't blink when delivering trauma. Pencil skirt. Ice-colored eyes. Zero unnecessary words. She didn't offer small talk. She just slid a manila folder across the table like a poker hand she'd been dying to play. I need you to know. This wasn't supposed to come to light, she said quietly. That's when I knew it was going to be worse than I imagined. Inside the folder were clinic records from 3 decades ago. Handwritten notes. Signatures. Medical charts. And then a line highlighted in faded yellow. Client selected non-disclosure agreement. Second embryo placed at request of surrogate family. No contact permitted. I blinked. Second embryo? Surrogate family. She tapped the paper with a neat fingernail. You weren't a mix-up, Alina. You were an afterthought. A backup. Marlene and Gerald used Camila's embryo and then altered the paperwork. They didn't tell the clinic it wasn't theirs. They wanted a child and they didn't want questions. My stomach dropped. They stole me. She didn't say yes. She didn't have to. They paid extra to suppress your origin records. You weren't just forgotten. You were deleted. Legally, you didn't exist. I couldn't breathe. My entire life, the cold shoulders, the missed birthdays, the feeling that I never quite fit, it wasn't in my head. It was designed. They erased Camila. And then they tried to erase me. But someone left the truth behind. Walter. Camila. And now me. Rhea handed me another sheet. A scanned letter and signed unsent. To whom it may concern. We request anonymity in this matter. The child will be treated as our own. There is no need to involve the donor family. This was always meant to be clean. Marlene's words. Her signature at the bottom, elegant, cold. Why didn't anyone stop them? I asked. The clinic shut down 2 years later. Laws were murky. It was easier to let it go. They always let it go. My life. My name. My mother. But I wasn't letting it go anymore. That night, I drove to the old family house. Not to talk. Not to beg. I just needed to see it one last time, the house where I had scrubbed dishes with bleeding hands, where I'd slept under ceilings that didn't know my name. The porch light was off. Typical. Marlene never waited up for me. I stood in the driveway staring at the window where my childhood room used to be. I thought about the nights I cried myself to sleep after hearing them laugh with Tessa downstairs. The years I told myself maybe next Christmas, maybe next birthday, maybe next time. No more maybes. I wasn't here for closure. I was here to warn them. I pulled out my phone, filmed the house for 5 seconds. Then turned the camera on myself. This is where they raised me. Where they erased my mother. Where they pretended I was theirs until the DNA didn't lie. I sent it to a private email. Saved it as truthbomb_1. Back at Walter's, I didn't sleep. I read every single letter Camila wrote. One line kept echoing in my head. If they try to dim your light, set the whole damn room on fire. She wasn't just brave. She was furious in that soft, loving way women learn to bury. I wouldn't bury it. Not anymore. The next day, I sent a message to Tessa. I didn't say hi. I didn't ask how she was. I just wrote. You should ask Mom what she signed in 1995. And what she deleted to keep you in the spotlight. Her reply came 3 hours later. WTF are you talking about? I get that you're upset, but don't take it out on us. You've always been dramatic. Ah, there it was. The same dismissive, saccharine tone they all used. Not real concern. Just containment. I was a threat now, and they wanted to put me back in the box. Too late. That weekend I got a package. No return address. Inside was a flash drive. I hesitated for a moment, afraid of what door I'd be opening. But I plugged it in. There were 3 files. Old footage. Archival footage from the clinic. Video 1, Marlene in a waiting room. Nervous. Twisting her ring. Video 2. A consultation. Camila, 8 months pregnant, voice shaking as she signed release forms with conditions. Only if she goes to a family who wants her. Only if they promise to tell her the truth. Video 3. A silent clip. Security cam. Marlene and Gerald whispering to a nurse. Cash envelope. It wasn't a mix-up. It was a transaction. I threw up in the sink. Not out of weakness. Out of clarity. They hadn't taken me out of love. They'd taken me to erase someone else. To control the story. To play house with a child they didn't even want. And now they were smiling in family photos, claiming Tessa as the real daughter. As if the past couldn't find them. But the past found me. And I was done playing the discarded. That night I wrote a list. Phase 1, legal name change done. Phase 2, reclaim Camila's history in progress. Phase 3, tell the world. Not through violence. Not with fire. But with truth. The one thing they'd spent 30 years avoiding. And I had the receipts. But before I could move forward, something happened. Walter called me into the living room. His face was pale. Shaking. I got a call, he said. From an old contact at the clinic. Someone's been trying to access Camila's files. My stomach twisted. Who? He handed me the phone. The caller's name, Tessa Landers. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was digging. And I knew exactly why. They were afraid I had something that could destroy them. They were right. There's a moment just before you cross a line when your breath catches. Not from fear. From certainty. Like your body knows there's no going back. I sat on the edge of Walter's couch, clutching the phone screen with Tessa's name burned into it. She was digging into Camila's past. Into my past. Not to understand. Not to apologize. But to silence me. To get ahead of the truth. Walter's voice was calm, but I could see the storm behind his eyes. She called twice. Didn't leave a message. Just kept asking about the records. I stood up. Every part of me felt like a lit wire. I'm done waiting, I said. They're not going to spin this. I'm going to burn the mask off every single one of them. Walter didn't try to stop me. He just nodded. And for the first time I saw it. Not the frail old man my family had written off, but the war survivor he used to be. The man who'd waited decades to protect Camila's daughter. And now finally had the chance. Then let's do it right, he said. I went public the next morning. Not on Instagram. Not on TikTok. No filters. No theatrics. Just a video, raw, shaky, honest. I filmed it in the guest room, Camila's violin behind me, her picture beside me. I spoke in the voice I'd buried for 30 years. My name is Alina Cardinus. I'm the biological daughter of a woman you've never heard of, because my parents erased her. They took me in after her death. Then buried the truth. They raised me in a home where I was never enough, because I wasn't theirs by blood. But I was loved. Once. Fiercely. By a mother who died protecting me. Now? I'm taking her story back. I uploaded the video. I emailed the old clinic files to myself with a timestamp. I encrypted the security footage. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a reporter. Her name was Dahlia Meeks. Local. Sharp. Known for takedown stories involving quiet suburban scandals. I sent her everything. The clinic notes. The stolen records. The footage of Marlene and Gerald. The letters from Camila. The DNA test results. She replied within hours. This is explosive, she said over the phone. If this is real, it's not just a family story. It's a systemic cover-up. Do you want anonymity? I laughed. No. I want them to see me. By sunset, the video had 40,000 views. By midnight, it had 120,000. Comments poured in. You're so brave. They don't deserve you. I cried at She Was Loved. Once. I hope they burn. But with the love came the pushback. Anonymous texts. Private numbers. One voicemail, Marlene's voice clipped and cold. You've made your point, Alina. Don't embarrass yourself further. It didn't shake me. But it proved something. I was no longer the quiet one in the corner. I was the storm knocking on their perfect little door. And then something happened I didn't expect. Tessa showed up. She came to Walter's house in the middle of the afternoon. No warning. Just a knock, and then there she was, glowing as always but for once rattled. I opened the door. We stared at each other for a long moment. Same eyes. Same height. But galaxies apart. I need to talk to you, she said. I stepped aside. Not for her. For the final nail in the coffin. She didn't waste time. Why are you doing this? She asked, pacing the living room like a caged thing. You're blowing everything up. For what? A name? A mother you never knew. I almost laughed. You mean the mother you never knew existed because your parents lied? She flinched. They were trying to help. They were helping themselves. Silence. Then she said the thing that made my blood freeze. I talked to someone at the clinic. They offered a settlement years ago. Mom turned it down. Said it was easier to just raise you quietly. Raise me quietly. Like a stray dog. I turned away, heart racing. But then I saw it. On the table. My journal. Open. Moved. She'd read it. You were never here to talk, I said slowly. You came to see what I know. Her voice shifted. No. I needed to understand why you're doing this. Why you're making it harder for everyone. That was the moment. The breaking point. Tessa, I said, staring straight into her carefully composed face. I was erased. Raised like a spare. Lied to for 3 decades. And you want to talk about making your life harder? She didn't answer. So I gave her the final cut. Here's the difference between us, I said. You were loved like a daughter. I was treated like a debt. And now that the truth is inconvenient, you want me quiet again. She blinked. Her silence was the answer. She hadn't come to understand. She'd come to contain. And she had failed. After she left, I broke. Not from regret. From grief. Because somewhere inside me, I'd still hoped maybe Tessa would see me. Maybe she'd say sorry. Maybe I'd finally have a sister who gave a damn. But Tessa was just another mirror of Marlene. Polished. Controlled. Self-serving. The house felt colder after she left. But cleaner. That night, I did something irreversible. I uploaded the clinic footage. Everything. To a public folder. With names. Dates. Camila's voice. My birth record. Marlene's signature. I titled it, Buried, the Life They Tried to Delete. Within 48 hours it hit trending. A week later, Dahlia Meeks published her expose. Front page. Donor deception, a family secret, a daughter's fight for the truth. The article tore through our town like wildfire. Old neighbors. Teachers. Even my hospital co-workers, they saw it all. I was no longer the quiet nurse who worked overtime. I was the girl with a stolen name and a mother's rage in her bones. Then came the final blow. A subpoena. Not for me, for them. A class action lawsuit against the clinic had reopened. Marlene and Gerald's names were on the witness list. And with them, a court order to unseal all adoption records. They couldn't hide anymore. They couldn't rewrite me out of the story. But before I could breathe a sigh of relief, Walter found something. In the attic. A sealed envelope. Old. Yellowed. Tucked beneath Camila's journals. It was addressed to Marlene. We looked at each other. I opened it. Inside was a single line. If you raise her fully. Tell her she's mine. Or give her to someone who will. The handwriting was Camila's. A vow. A warning. A promise Marlene broke the moment she stapled my last name to hers. I stared at the letter. And I made my decision. I was going to do something they never expected. I was going to walk back into their lives. Not for reconciliation. Not for forgiveness. But for justice. I walked into the courtroom like it was my battlefield. No lipstick. No makeup. Just the truth in my bones and fire in my blood. Marlene wouldn't look at me. Gerald's eyes skimmed the ceiling like he was trying to disappear into it. And Tessa? She sat between them, her polished mask cracking just slightly around the eyes. Good. They should have been shaking. Because for the first time in their lives. I wasn't asking to be seen. I was demanding it. The court wasn't about money. It was about documentation. It was about exposure. About Camila. About me. The suit had been reopened as part of a broader investigation into improper embryo handling and coerced adoptions from that now-defunct clinic. My testimony was requested by name. And I gave it. All of it. I stood in front of a room full of strangers and told them exactly what happened. How I was taken. How my real mother's death became someone else's opportunity. How I was raised as a placeholder in someone else's picture-perfect family. And how I was erased not by accident but by choice. Marlene tried to interject. We did what we thought was right. The judge raised a hand. You'll have your turn, Mrs. Landers. Her lips pressed into a thin, bitter line. Tessa just stared at the floor. No gold star for this one, sweetheart. After court recessed, I didn't leave immediately. I waited. And when Marlene finally walked past, I stepped into her path. You got 30 years of silence, I said. Now you'll get 30 years of truth. She opened her mouth, probably to spin it the way she spun everything. But I leaned in close. And if you think this ends in court, you're wrong. This is just the prologue. Then I walked away. I didn't look back. She didn't follow. Later that week, Dahlia released part 2 of The Expose. This time it wasn't just facts and footage. It was faces, names, Camila's story, my story, and a clip of me, standing in front of the old house. The banner still burned into my memory. They told me I was family. But family doesn't hide your mother's name like a crime scene. Family doesn't toast your sister for being real, while pretending you're invisible. Family doesn't lie to the world and call it love. The video went viral. Over 2 million views in 2 days. Suddenly, I was the daughter who spoke for all the forgotten ones. Emails flooded in. You gave me courage to walk away from my family too. I found my biological mom because of your story. They'll never erase you again. No, they wouldn't. 'Cause now, I was louder than all of them combined. A month passed. The lawsuit triggered a cascade. Other donors came forward. Other stolen names. Other girls who had grown up with the wrong mother and no answers. Camila wasn't the only one. But she was the first who left a map behind. And I followed it. All the way home. Walter passed quietly not long after the court case ended. He went peacefully. In his sleep. The morning sun pouring through his window. My hand holding his. He waited until the world knew the truth. Until Camila's name was spoken. Until her daughter stood tall and didn't flinch. He left me the house. The journals. The music. And a note. You were always meant to carry the light, Lena Bug. Burn it bright. Burn it brave. So I did. I didn't just change my name. I changed everything. I started a foundation, the Cardinus Project, to help children raised in fraudulent or coercive adoption systems find the truth. Find their people. We've already reconnected 43 families. Camila would have loved that. I think about her a lot now. Not as a mystery, but as a woman. A fighter. A mother who wrote lullabies in her journal and whispered love into the ribs of a daughter she never got to raise. Now I play her violin at fundraisers. Badly. But proudly. Because the bloodline I carry didn't come from erasure. Came from survival. I haven't spoken to Marlene or Gerald since the verdict. They never apologized. Never even acknowledged what they did, not out loud anyway. Last I heard, they moved to another city. Tessa got a job out of state. She deleted her social media after the story went public. Good. Let them live in the shadows they tried to cast over me. Because I don't need their validation anymore. I was never theirs to define. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. Blowing up my life. Burning the bridge. Dragging the family name through the dirt. And I tell them the truth. That bridge was never mine. That name was never mine. And if burning a lie makes way for the truth, light the damn match. I set a new table now. It's smaller. Quieter. But every seat is real. Chosen. Earned. And when people sit with me, they don't have to wonder if they belong. Because I know how that silence tastes. I lived it. And I will never let anyone else swallow it again. Candle final words. If they couldn't love me truthfully, they don't deserve a single chapter in my story. Because this isn't a tragedy. It's a reckoning. And I didn't lose a family. I found myself.